What's going on everyone, I'm Chirag and welcome to part 12 of tutorial series on how to deploy Flask application on the EC2 instance. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to auto start services using user data and have the Flask application up and running whenever you start or reboot your instance. So let's say you are using the Flask application for a specific purpose, which is hosted on the EC2 instance, and you want to shut it down after use, right? So here we can use user data to define the list of commands that we want to execute when the instance boots up, right? So here I'm assuming that you have configured nginx server underscore name directive with elastic IP or any other static DNS. So what I'm talking about is cd/etc/nginx sites enabled sudo vim flask app. So I'm talking about this server underscore name. So I'm assuming that this is the static IP or it should be any other DNS, right? So it's because nginx does not allow us to update the server underscore name directive dynamically, but there are ways to do, right? So if you want to learn how to create elastic IP and associate it with the instance, then the video link is in the description, right? So this is my static IP or the elastic IP that I'm using, right? So I will close this. So now what is user data? So basically AWS user data is the set of commands you can provide to an instance at the launch time, right? Or you can also give those commands after launching an instance, right? So let's see how we can do that. So right now my application is running. So as you can see, right? So I have two services over here. One is Flask service that is responsible for running Unicorn, and one is Nginx service that is responsible for the web server. So I will show you sudo service Flask service status, and as you can see it's running, and same goes for Nginx. And it's running too, right? So in case we are restarting or rebooting this instance, then these services are going to stop, right? So what I will do is I will manually stop this service just to show you an example. So I will say sudo service nginx stop, and same goes for Flask service stop. And now if I try to load this application, then it says the site can't be reached. Okay. So now how we can add or update user data, right? So while instance is running, we cannot update or add the user data. So if we try to, let's see. So select the instance, click on actions, say instance settings, and say view or change user data. So here we have the text box, but we can't edit or type anything, right? So we have to stop this instance, as you can see in the message. So I will say cancel, select the instance, click on actions, instance state, say stop. So now the instance is stopped, right? So again click on actions, within instance settings, say view or change user data, and now we can add the commands over here, right? So I have the command ready, so I'm going to copy and paste it over here. So the first line says hash cloud boot hook. So basically it's the directive, right? So basically cloud boot hook is a directive, and cloud boot hook user data runs at every instance boot, right? So whenever the instance boots up, the cloud boot hook user data runs, right? Or that is being executed. Then we have bin bash. Then I am executing two commands, that is service Flask service restart and service nginx restart. So it should be able to start the service when the instance boot up, right? So apart from that, you can add many other commands that is required, like you want to update something, so you can say apt-get update-y, right, and such commands. So right now I only require these two commands, that is service flask service restart and service nginx restart, right? So here we are not mentioning sudo, right, because this user data runs as a root user, so it doesn't require the sudo over here. So that's the reason there is no sudo. So I think we are done with the user data. And apart from that, you can also set some environment variable that you want to access in the instance, and likewise. So configure this user data as per your requirement and say save. Now once it is saved, go back to actions, instance state, and say start. Now the instance is up and running, so without making any changes, we should be able to access the application, that is Flask application. So let's try to access it. So I'm going to reload. So as you can see, our application is up and running and we are able to access it without making any changes within the server or the instance, right? So basically this is how you can configure user data for your application to run, right? So, and apart from that, you can also use user data for another purpose, like setting up environment variable. So for example, let's consider you don't have the elastic IP, and each time the instance boot up, we will have the different or dynamic public IP. So now you want to access that IP in terms of environment variable, right? So that is something you can again set in the user data, and you can reference that environment variable within your script or somewhere where you want to access, right, without manually SSH or logging into the EC2 instance, right? So this is how you can achieve few things. So well, that's it for this tutorial. So I will be coming up with the Docker tutorial for deploying the Flask application on the EC2 instance, and then probably we will move on with the ECS Fargate, right? So that's the plan further. So well, till that time, if you want me to do tutorial on any use case or service, then please leave them below and I will try my best to come up with the tutorial as soon as possible. And if you have any queries or comments, then again please leave them below, and don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel, and see you next time.